Okay, so welcome back to the second part of the introduction to Facebook application development. Now, an important thing to do at this point, after we've created our session variable, is to test this application to make sure that it does actually display data when we run it through Facebook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just say echo, and I'm going to write hello. So if I click Save Changes, that's saved that file. We can come back to Facebook and we can take this canvas URL, the one we created earlier, and I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste that into a new tab. Okay, so you can see that what's happened is we've displayed the information from my server, and this is now integrated into the Facebook environment. So you can see how easy it is to create an application that's integrated into a Facebook environment, and it makes it look a lot more professional than an iframe. Remember, we did that in the settings earlier. I chose FBML. This is how FBML is displayed, whereas an iframe would be just display it as you do it with your fonts, everything like that. It's entirely up to you. It will work either way, but I think it's a lot more professional to use this way, and you do get the added advantage of the Facebook markup language. So now that we know that that works, we can continue to edit our index.php file. Let's just get rid of this. Now what we need is a check to see if the session is empty or not. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up an if statement, and inside this I'm going to say if not empty session. So session here is what we created up here. So if this isn't empty, then we do something in here, and I'm going to use a try in here. We're going to try something here, and we're going to catch an exception. Now don't worry if you don't know what this means. I do have a video on try and catch, so if you have a look at that, you'll understand a lot more. So what we're basically doing here is, if the session is not empty, we're going to try some code in here, and we're going to catch an exception which is labeled as E, but we're not going to do anything in the exception, so we're just trying some code here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable called UID, and this is going to equal Facebook. So again, we're using the Facebook object, and this is get user. Now we're going to come down and I'm going to say user equals Facebook, and this is going to be API, and then inside here we're using /me. So this is just getting information about the user that's currently logged onto our application and that's using our application. Now this doesn't necessarily mean that they've allowed access to our information. We're going to have to go into that in a minute. So we're going to try and run this just to see if everything works. Otherwise Facebook should give us an error back. Okay, so yeah, we've got the URL returned code 200 and no data. So let's just echo something out we'll just keep this down here. We save the changes to that page, rerun the application, and it says hello. So we've got no other errors with the code that we've created so far. The error there was just displayed because we had nothing being returned to Facebook, so it was seen as a blank page. Okay, so underneath our try, we want to create another if statement to see if this user variable here is empty or not. So i.e. has the user authenticated with the application, or is the user logged in properly? And to do this, we're just going to say if exclamation mark empty, meaning not empty, user. So if the user does exist, basically, I'm going to say echo hello. Otherwise, I'm just going to die and an error occurred. So we know that an error has occurred at that point. Okay, so now let's just test this. Okay, so it's still displaying hello, and the reason for this is that we don't have a user logged in, but we do come down and still run this hello. Now, if I was to get rid of this, we'd get the same 200 error. But we need to find a way to check. There we go. So there's the code 200 and no data. We need to find a way to check or to do something in place of this check. What I mean is, if the session isn't empty, we do this, At the moment the session is empty, so we need to do something after this, if that makes sense. So none of this is being run, that's why we get our 200 code there with no data. But we need to do something else, and this is to generate a login URL, and this will allow Facebook or allow the user to say, do I want to give permission to this application? So I'm going to create a URL, a variable called URL, and this is going to be again using the Facebook object, and it's get login URL, and then we come down and we say header. In fact, no, we don't. We could redirect, but what I want to do is echo out, and I want to create some text and click here to let's say click here to add the PHP Academy Facebook application. So what we should do now is the check will say, well, there is, this session is empty, so if it is empty we're going to run this else block here. And what we're doing is we're creating a login URL, and we're going to ask to click on it. So obviously at the moment it says click here to add the PHP Academy Facebook application, but what we haven't done is included the URL, so I'm going to include that just in normal HTML here. So we pop the URL in there. So if I save the changes for that and come back, what we get here is a button to click, and you can see the URL at the bottom of the page. Let's just right click and copy that link address, and I'll paste it in and show you that. Okay, so we've got several pieces of information. We've got the login.php file, we've got the API key, we've got the cancel URL, which just goes back to the normal page. We've got a few other bits of information where it's going to redirect to after the user has authenticated. So if we do click on this button, oh, we get an error. Let's just go back. Okay, so if we go over to our developers page here and click on edit settings, and we come to website, what I'm going to do here is enter the URL of my my site URL basically, and I'm going to click Save Changes. Right, so let's give that another try. Refresh this page. Click here. Okay, so now that's worked. So if you do receive that error, now you know what to do. Just click on Edit Settings, go to Website, and enter your site URL, which is the same as your Canvas URL. So now we've got a button saying Request for Permission. So we can click Allow or Not Allow. But for now I'm just going to leave that and carry on with some more code. Now what we need to do is, once the application has been allowed, let me show you what happens. Click on there and click Allow. Okay, so what it does is it goes back to our phpacademy.org page /Facebook. Now we don't want this, we want it to redirect back to Facebook because we use the Facebook markup language to get that integrated environment. So what we do need to do is, just before we echo hello to the user, we need to say if something, and we need to perform a check to see if the user has actually allowed access to the application. And if you have a look here, we've got a get variable called installed equals 1. Now, if you don't know about get variables, I do have a video on that as well, so you can have a look at that. But we can take this get variable and say if it equals 1, then redirect back to our Facebook application page. So I'm going to say if $$_get installed equals 1, then header location http://apps.facebook.com/PHP Academy. We can save the changes to that, and what I'm going to do now is click on this and refresh the page, and you can see it goes back to Facebook. So once another user allows this application, you won't have the same problem. It will automatically redirect back to this application page. Now another thing we want to do is take some information about the user and display it. So you can see here we used the user ID and the user to grab some information about the user, so it's /me. Now what we can use this information in different ways. So if we append onto this hello, we'll put a space there because we're going to put the user's first and last name, and I'm going to say $$ user, and then in square brackets and in inverted commas I'm going to say first_name. Click on Save Changes. Now we've taken some information about the user that's currently logged in and that's allowed access to our application. I'm going to refresh the page and it says hello Alex because that's the first name associated with my Facebook account. Now we can do exactly the same thing. We can come down, we can append a dot and a space, append using a dot. We can append a space here and we're going to append user last name. So click Save Changes, refresh this page, and you can just see it's displayed my surname. So because this is just an introduction, that's all I'm going to give for displaying information at the moment. There might be some more Facebook application development video tutorials to come. They'll be announced on Twitter. If you haven't already followed PHP Academy on Twitter, it's twitter.com/PHP Academy. I also have a Facebook group, so search for PHP Academy on Facebook just up here. And that pretty much wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you learned something, and I look forward to seeing you for more tutorials soon.